Hi, welcome back. We're in the middle of introducing combat, and in the previous video I was messing around with the camera. I've reverted those changes because I want to stay focused on combat here. It's true I wanted to see the weapon animations and the weapon in the hands of the player, but we can do a lot of that through the scene view, and again, one thing at a time. Right now, where we left off, the enemy character controller is when a trigger happens here, when we get within melee range, whatever that is, and we will adjust that later on. What will happen is we'll get into chase mode. Actually, I should say when we get within detection range, we enter chase mode, and we have these two numbers here that need to be replaced. This one is the de-aggro range. How far away are we before the monster gives up and goes back to what it was doing before? And this one is how close do we get before we stop and begin attacking. So that number there needs to be, these numbers need to be customized per NPC. And they already are. We already have that. If we go back to the NPC manager and we look down here, we see the attack ranges are done. Now, we need to add in more things for like a de-aggro range there. And maybe I should do that since we're going to be entering, making changes in that one part of code. Okay, so attack range really is about detection range, maybe would be when we, as close as we can get before they attack us, when they detect us. And that is being stored right here. I want to add in public float aggro range. That is going to be public float de-aggro range. Okay, so I really changed the meaning of these now. Aggro range will be our detection range. De-aggro will be when they give up. And attack will be how close we get. So those are the three values there. I'm going to come down here and we will make some adjustments there. So right now this is how close we can get. I will copy this line and make the changes on the first NPC, and then we can pause the video and make those changes on the rest. So aggro range and de-aggro range, and aggro range for this is the regular orc. So aggro would be about 20 meters, and de-aggro would be about 40. That was the value I was using before. Okay, so I'm going to fill in the rest of those. Be right back. And you see these have all been filled in here. So the aggro ranges are set to 20. The de-aggro ranges at 40, and attack is mostly 3 from the melee classes, but 30 for this spellcasting class. All right, so now those values need to get brought into the NPC. Okay, so these will be again properties of the NPC and not of the mob. So like float float de-aggro range. Weapon range is okay to leave in the mob because players will have those, but players will not have a aggro and de-aggro range. Those will only be for NPCs, and so those will be looked up by type. So I need to get that information out of the NPC manager. Okay, so all of these, we have get attack range, get attack type down here. I will just right underneath get attack range right here would be a good one to underneath here. Public float get aggro range. So this is the enum NPC type ID. And public float get de-aggro range. And the types of stuff we were doing here, I'll just copy this line because it's going to be basically what I'm going to be doing here, just a different member. And instead of this, it will be aggro range. And instead of this, it will be de-aggro range. Okay. Now we go back to the controller. The controller, and I've lost it right there it is. The controller should know what type of an NPC we're dealing with right now. So go back up here at the top and look. There should be, if there isn't, we probably want a reference to the NPC this is attached to. Okay, I'm going to put in a private, make it an NPC. It should be enough right now. We'll just have to load this from the target information. Okay, every creature should have its own target. This is the enemy controller. The NPC should have been created. Is it created before now or not? I'm pretty sure it is created before now. So we can do this and start. I can say something like, first of all, I can get targetable. And I'll have a game object, get component. Now, well, I'm only interested if it's not null, but I also want to verify that we are an NPC. This should not be the script should not be attached to something that's not an NPC, but if it is, I want to catch it. Target type dot, and if it's color equals red. This is a nothing else to do there. Next here is going to be NPC equals targetable data as NPC. Okay, since we know it's an NPC, you'll have an NPC data attached to it. And you know, I want the animator as well. Let's get that created. I'm going to want to run animations. No, leave that for later. No, don't do that. But we do have a reference to the NPC inside the character controller that is assigned here. So that means we can call that NPC. And it does occur that information is coming from the NPC manager. I'm going to leave this in here because I do want the NPC for some other stuff later. But for right now, we can just update the attack range. Do I not have that as a? Oh, I'm in the wrong object. This is supposed to be. I have to get that saved off so I don't. This should be in the NPC here. We have aggro range and de-aggro range, and attack range is a mob parameter. I don't see it in here as well. Well, I'll put it here. These players will have attack ranges, but they won't have aggro and de-aggro ranges. So that will be a range equals NPC manager dot instance dot get attack range. Aggro range equal NPC manager instance dot get aggro range, and de-aggro range equals NPC manager dot instance dot de-aggro range. In Google Drive making noise over there. Sorry about that. I noticed that the weapon attachments are looked up, but that's even in cases where we have a spellcasting NPC. Now I'm going to have to adjust this later. Well, maybe not even in this course, but we would want to have more than one attack type. But for right now, everybody has an attack type, and that is available through get attack type. So if we know that we're spellcasting, we don't need to be doing all this stuff. So I want to say if NPC manager dot instance dot get attack type equals the attack type would be attack weapon, then we can go and do this stuff. That's the only time I really care about weapon attach points. And in fact, we probably need to save the attack type, or it might be a good idea to save the attack type. Let me think about if it's going to be used later. No, probably isn't. I don't think I need it again here. So this will restrict the weapon equipping only to people who have weapon attacks. Now, what about the aggro range? It's being stored here, but you know where it's being used is in that sphere collider. The sphere collider is what's going to be triggering aggro. So I'm going to need to adjust that sphere collider. So similarly, I'm going to need to get a reference to it. And I can do that anywhere in here. But sphere collider equals, we have a game object, right? And because I just saved it up above there. And I can just call get component. And I want a sphere collider. There should only be one of those. I said there should, but as you saw earlier, I have models there that don't have, I have prefabs that do not have sphere colliders in there, and I may not get them updated. So let's check them. No sphere collider for plus, and I'll just say type ID. Make sure to close off the yes. And there's nothing that needs to be done there. But if I do have a sphere collider, then I want to adjust it. And the radius is what I want to adjust. The radius is sphere measured in the object's local space equals aggro range. Okay. So that's the detection range. We're going to get that. So now the spellcasters will have longer radiuses. The melee may have shorter ones. We can adjust it per NPC, but now they each get the correct one. So it really doesn't matter what the sphere collider is set at in the prefab, it'll get overridden here. And an unrelated note, but still an important one, I just noticed I'm not loading the skills. So I don't think that is. I'm going to check it by saying find references to it. And I can see that the declaration down here, the NPC and player both call it now, so it wasn't being called before. I'll find that in a bit. All right, so the radius is being done. We have skills loaded. I think our NPC is in good enough shape. Going back to that question that inside the controller, what do we do under attack? Well, what we're going to do under attack is a couple of things. We want to run an attack animation appropriate to the NPC, and we want to perform an attack appropriate to the NPC. And back over here, and down here, oops, aggro. Oh, and I wanted to get rid of this stuff here. I don't want to have these hard-coded values here. So if I were to look those up, I can actually get them through our NPC dot aggro range. Okay, so this is actually the de-aggro range is what I want here. If we're greater than the de-aggro range, we end the chase mode. And then this value is going to be the attack range down here. Great. Now the chase is no longer have any magic numbers. It'll use the appropriate values per NPC. Okay, so I'm finally ready to start doing some things down here. One of the first things I want to do, though, is I want to cause the NPC to rotate towards the player. It probably should have been facing the player earlier, but well, no, the controller should have left us facing the player. I was just wondering if it would be possible to sneak up on somebody and get within that range. Well, let me do it anyway then. Transform dot. This is the same code that we use for ebook QB here. Quaternion dot slurp linear interpolate transform dot rotation. Oops. And I want the quaternion dot look rotation. The difference between the target. So vector from that to transform dot position. And I need a rotation speed times time dot delta time. Which I don't have a rotation speed times time dot delta time. And I will set that rotation speed up here as a constant. Okay, private const float rotation was 20.0f. I want it to snap around pretty fast, but not instantaneously. So I can tweak that later on as I need it. But that's the first thing we want to do, is to face the face player, just in case we sneak up on it. And next, we want to now perform the attack. Let me think what we're going to do here. Okay, it's going to be complex. What we want to do is we need to stop the agent from moving. Okay, he has to stop moving, and that's kind of a hard thing to do there. Do I have character dot? I can say character dot move, and this time I give it vector 3.0 crouch jump. But and really, in order to do this well, I found I had to actually turn off the nav mesh agent. Given that now, I have to go through and make a few changes here, because since I turned that off, I need to turn it back on in a bit. And I also need to check to see if that's enabled before I do this, because once we disable the agent like that, I cannot make any more calls to the agent other than turning it back on. Well, I can set properties like that, but generally hands off the agent. So I'm going to check this. How I send the agent back up or turn it back on? If it's greater than the attack range, you see we're moving towards it here. So what I'm going to do is to oops. If not agent got enabled. This is the case when we were within attack range, we stopped, and then the player moved out of range. So if the player backs up a couple of steps, we need to turn the agent back on and cause him to move forward. We can't let him just back away and stand there. So agent got enabled is true, and at the same time I want to say agent dot set destination to target dot position. Okay, so make sure he's in case he lost his target. And I'm going to set the agent speed down here. So, but didn't we set it up above? Yeah, we did. But I'm taking it back out because I do not want the agent may be stopped. So I don't want to give it a speed if once he's coming to a stop. Now, any references to agent need to be inside the these checks. All right, so if he's moved out of aggro range, maybe a teleport or something like that, it'd have to be something big. Then I want to turn it back on, set the destination. And right now, see, it's set to return if we're outside of the de-aggro range. It's going to let him move on the next frame. That's probably okay. We'll leave that there. We won't need any movements on this frame, but the next frame we come back around, it should work fine. So we'll leave that alone. I want to look for more. Okay, so at this point here, when run speed is changed, we know that agent's been enabled. We're checking agent. Okay, so all of this code here is using the agent is appropriately checking to see if it's enabled. And Chase should be the only place that we need to worry about this, because this is the only place where we turn the agent off is inside Chase. And that's to make sure that he doesn't keep moving, that it stops when it gets close to us. I think I might be able to test this out right now. So in fact, I'll just do a save all, come back down here, and let's just run it. And there's compiler errors. So what we've got going on here. An overload for get attack range. All right, that's in the. Oh, we need to have the type ID here. And there's a get attack type. Click on that and get attack type ID. Cannot be changed, but Boolean and target type. Right this second. To read this, what I wanted to do was to check to see if targetable type equals this. Yeah, that will work. Okay, it's important to check the targetable is non-null before accessing it. Otherwise, we'll have a reference, a null reference. Okay, I think we're good here. Now, I don't know whether that. Okay, no sphere colliders for the orcs. Good thing it told us that. Enemy controller attached to non-NPC. That's a good one to know. Let's see, who's the non-NPC? Could it be? Certainly not an NPC. One of the orcs. Enemy character control. That tells us where we detected it. I need to know which object it is. All right, well, one thing at a time. I need to get rid of some of these other. I need to turn some of these other things off. This orc, for example, should be turned off as this is. Let me just actually run this and see. That might have been the NPC that we're talking about. No, that's not. Well, we get a clue here. This debug right, which I left in and should have pulled out, is not telling us which NPC. In fact, this should tell us which NPC it is as well. This is the enemy character controller, but we do not have an NPC though. But we'll have an object name. Let me just try it this way. Plus name plus okay, now it tells us it's the nightshade. Let me just save this, apply the changes to the prefab, and see if that fixes it. Okay, that was just an unsaved prefab. Now, what's this updated name for NPC? I think that had to do with the fact that the NPC names were not being changed earlier. Let's find where that line is. And, okay, I'll give it that. There was a problem earlier where the NPC names weren't being updated. They were staying orc all the time. Okay. Let me turn off my invulnerability, and let's see if that just causes me to get attacked by those. Oops. Fault. I want to make sure I'm not too close to those orcs. Oh, not. Let me run over here. One of these I can deal with. Nope, that thing is not triggering. And well, also, it's moving around on me. So let me go find this. I'm going to mark it as kinematic. Oh, I need to update the prefab. That I can fix. I bumped into it earlier. Okay, good. It's not skating all over the ground there. It is floating in the ground, above the ground a little bit. Let me debug some of the enemy character controller things to see what's going on within this code here. Okay, so this is the de-aggro range right here. Okay, and this is the attack. Hopefully I don't get too many of those. And, oh, I see what's going on here. The aggro is not being called. I took this code out and I never aggroed. What does aggro take? Takes an aggro target, which is, I think, other dot game object. Zoom over here. Okay. Now this thing is attacking. All right, so I can turn that on. It's the attack message that's really messing things up here. And I don't need to have de-aggro range here. I don't think either. It's a little bit of a little bitty window down here. Let's see. Okay, we're not running any animations there. None of them are being ran. So let's take a look at the Nightshade animation controller. Nightshade animations. Nightshade animations controller. Nightshade idle. Let's verify that. Okay. All right. So this particular idle is Nightshade idle here. Humanoid. Well, one thing I noticed too that we need to do, and it doesn't look like it's been changed here, is this really needs to be set to original and not body orientation. Otherwise, they will rotate 90 degrees on us. I don't think that's what's causing it, but let's make sure that gets done. If we look over here under the console, preview inactive object using fallback object and animation import warnings. Well, that's probably one to look into, so I'm going to go check those out. Okay, I found out what the problem is, and this is something I talked about earlier, but the ground check distance somehow got set to a very low number here, and that is just way too low for. Let me double check the orc as well to make sure its ground check distance is reasonable. Okay, so when I created this, I did not reset the ground check distance. And let's see if that causes it. Okay, there we see it running towards us. And continuing to run towards us. So it didn't stop. That's an interesting point there. Okay, what happened is it did not stop once it ran into range. And that is not a problem with the ranges or the animation. It's because the nav mesh agent wasn't told specifically to stop. It needs to so let me make sure that that was told to stop. Okay, and this will be when we enable the agent. And this will occur so we get a little bit of a narrative here. There's some warnings I should look into in a bit. Okay, aggro on player. Never. Oh, finally call stop. That's kind of not good. And look into this a little bit. One of the things I don't know that I did up here was to set the stopping distance. Stopping distance equals 0.5 f. I don't know if that's going to make a difference, but that's something that I've done in the past. And if I come back down here, make sure I'm not resetting the speed someplace. Distance calculation, transform rotation, that isn't going to be a problem. Alright, let me, I need to run this a couple of times just to kind of study the problem. Double check. Comes in running aggro. And then it stops. Well, okay, that's not bad for melee. It's not resuming. So I don't think that was really a problem. Or rather, the stopping distance may have fixed it. I don't see a problem there right now. I do see a problem that it's not resuming when we move out of it. So I need to find out why we don't re-enter chase mode when the player backs away. Okay, come down here, look at the code. Okay, I don't like this code up here. I think I got a little carried away. If we are out of range, I want this enabled to be set all the time. Okay, so it's perfectly okay to turn the agent back on when we're out of range. At the same time, I probably want to do restore some things like agent.oldspeed. I'm sorry, agent.speed equals when I have old speed. Yeah. And see, it's enabled. I set the speed. I set the destination. Now, if the character is out of range there, we're going to need to path it back. And that brings up an interesting problem here in this case. When we're in the stand behavior, that's our previous behavior, and we're standing. If we go outside of aggro range and it de-aggros, it'll revert back to stand. We want it to go back to its original spot. So I'm going to need to have stand move during the update. It can't just stand there. It has to actually path back. So I'm going to set a pathing variable. I'm going to set a Boolean to say, are we returning to our point? And once we're there, we'll stop. And that brings up another problem too, and that is detecting when we're at the stopping location. Okay, so I'm going to use a little different technique for that. Okay, and that's going to be done up here in update. I should set that pathing back, no, private bool pathing back, it's false. Okay, and we will come down here to update, and if it stands rather than doing nothing, I'll say if pathing back, and we're going to do some stuff. Maybe I should not put it inside switch, but what I want to do, I want to see if the agent is, make sure it doesn't have path pending. Agent.remaining distance is less than or equal to agent.stopping distance. Then I can combine all this stuff again, but we don't want to check this while it still has a path pending. So I want to check now to see if agent has path, or agent.velocity dot square magnitude equals 0f. Now I've said before not to do comparisons on the velocity here on equality greater than 0.001. Again, if it's less than that, because the equality test of 0 and float is sometimes not very accurate. If this is the case, we return back to our original spot. Then I want to say character.move vector3.0. You've seen this before. Crouch, jump, agent.speed equals 0, and reset pathing back. We can return from this. All right, so if this is not the case, if we're not within range, but we are pathing back, then I want to equals walk speed, he'll walk back. Character move agent.desired velocity, that's how you've been moving them. Crouch, jump. All right, and so we need to come back down here under chase and set the pathing back right in here. Now you say, well, wait a minute, pathing back never gets set to false in this case. Well, for agents that aren't standing around, that's not a problem. They'll never need this code. It's only the stand code. But I'll worry about fixing that in a little bit. Let's see if that fixes this. And we're off back over here to get within range. We're coming back over here. That did not stop very well. Nor is it de-aggroing. So there's something going on here. Well, here's the problem here. I want to change that to target.position. I think we're aiming at the wrong point. That is using the last position. Alright, so I'm just going to stand here, stops, now comes, there we go. If that's too far back, then we can adjust that attack range. This is what it looks like. That is a bit distant there. So I might have bring that into 2 units. So let me try that. And that would be inside the NPC manager. We look up Nightshade down here. We see attack range at 3. Let's move it to 2. Now, the advantage of having this per NPC is should be pretty clear, because that means then that those that have bigger models, we can change the range. So let me pause that rather. I need to do something about that up in the air a bit, but that is the maybe a little bit closer than that. And while I'm at it, let's find that Nightshade and see if I can do something about that up in the air a bit. Alright, get over here. Alright, Nightshade. Are we up in the air? Yep, we are up in the air, it looks like. No? That does look like it's pretty good. Yeah, that's going to sink down into the ground. The collider looks okay. Maybe I should reset this and adjust the hips. And see if that fixes it there. So I'm going to pause the video while I mess around with the Nightshade a little bit. And I pretty quickly found this. This is showing me that the baked terrain that the NavMesh agent is using thinks that the elevation is higher than it really is. So I'm going to have to rebake the terrain and see if there's a problem with this to check the height. Let me stop this. We cannot bake the terrain while it's running. They've talked about that in beta, right now in the 5.6 beta, there's code that will do runtime baking of nav meshes. So that'll be a good thing. So I'm going to pause this while we bake the terrain. Okay, here's my thinking. We're looking at height. I don't think I created a height mesh. Yeah, that's not checked by default. And I think I may have done that earlier. So I'm going to make a height mesh and see if that fixes it. Other people have reported this problem on the Unity forums. So again, I'll pause it while this continues. Okay, we've baked this. I'm going to start this, and the character looks like it's on the ground just fine. So I'm going to bring my character over here, and looking okay. Let me just pause this and change the okay. I think that's the feet are on the ground. Why is this thing tilting? I do not know. It may be that the animation, or there's something wrong with the animations. when we're stopped like this, the agent's disabled, and I think the animator controller, I would hope, would be, I don't know. I'm going to have to look into that. I don't have any answers yet, but I do notice that we have two nightshades that are running their idle animations. I verified that, and one of them is tilted over here. So I need to go check that agent to see whether perhaps there's a rotation freeze that's not being applied here. Yes. I'm going to freeze the rotation on the rigid body, update the prefab, and then we'll try again. Oh, okay. Well, might help if I was running another animation, but I'll have to think about this for a little bit more. Okay, well, I have it better. Let's rerun it again. And what I did, which is really weird because I had never turned this on before, I went and changed the nav agent so that it will rotate and it will update the rotation. Before I wanted it, thinking I'd just keep it standing straight upright. But nope, turn that off, and now it's no longer. Okay, I'm liking that. Now it's missing attack animations and we haven't tested the de-aggro yet. So let me just take off down here. Okay, so it did de-aggro. And there it is walking to where I do not know. Okay. There's a little problem with the destination. We can fix that, but it definitely did detect de-aggro, and it definitely does walk even when it's in stand mode, which is something I desired. Well, I spotted something. There was no initial destination set to the NavDef agent. I want to set the destination to be, well, or actually, just let me set the destination here equals transform dot position. That's where it's currently standing. That way, when it reverts back to its previous destination, it will take it back to its spawn point. I'm not guaranteeing that's going to fix anything, but it's a good spot. Why are you not running? Oh, well, it's walking back. It's sliding a little bit too, which is weird because root motion is being used in the script, and that should have fixed this. So maybe there's something wrong with the animation. But why are you not? And it didn't look like just sliding. Could the ground check distance be too low? Looking for it. 2. Let me set it to 3. See if that changes anything. Oh, not you window. This window. Still sliding. All right, let me, I'm just experimenting here. I could have swore it was running properly before, but I want to And I'm just going to be manipulating the agent a little bit. See if I could, still not. Okay. Let me think, what did I change? And just to share with you a little bit of debugging that I'm using here. If I move around here, looking at the mechanism screen, it never moves off its idle animation, and forward never changes. None of this changes there. Clearly, the animator is moving things, but are we looking at the right animator? This is Nightshade. So the animator thinks that we're standing still. Okay, well, it's not an answer, but it is a hint of what's going on. And I found it here. As you can see, it's fixed, so I'll need to go ahead and put it back on the ground. But the fix was that I needed to give this move here. It was never sending the move in. So some of these ideas of, oh, I'll let it move it next frame, that was a bad idea, because next frame we may not get, there's no move path. All right, so that takes care of that. The animations start and stop are working fine. Now back to combat. And that's right down here. Let me take this and uncomment this. This is something I fixed, or I did when I was trying to debug that funny rotation. This is where we need to do combat here. What I want to do is really pass this off to the combat manager. Let me see if combat manager has, it has process melee. What it doesn't have is an entry point for combat. And let me create one for just public void process NPC attack. There'll be a mob attacker, mob defender. You might ask, what's the difference? Well, the difference is we need to run the animations. So I'm going to switch on the attacker dot attack type. I don't have an attack type. Well, we're going to need to save that, and it needs to be saved in the mob and not the NPC. All right, so NPC does not save attack type. Combat manager attack type. Okay, and when we assign the weapon, we will need to, or actually, when the NPC is created, it should have its attack type. The type equals get attack type. Oh, that's important. Now, the player does not have an attack type here, but this is NPC attacks we're doing. The player will need one eventually, because we need to know what animations to run. Attack type, and I'm switching off of that because I want to do different animations. Now, eventually, I'm going to have to ask the mobs to pick their own animations, because there may be spell-specific animations or attack-specific animations. But for right now, let's just get one that's generic for each type attack. Not attribute. Attack type. There'll be a spell. There'll be a weapon. Actually, this is a good time to go ahead and let them let them pick their own animation. Attacker dot, I don't have that perform in here. Let me get those breaks in here so we don't forget to put them in here. This should be a feature of the mob. I believe the mob has the attack type. It should have the ability to know what animation should be ran. Now I apologize that we're jumping all over the place, but this is just necessary. Put it down in here, public void perform attack animation. And once again, we're going to need to have something very similar where we switch off the attack type. In this case, now the reason we still need to keep the switch up later is because in that other spot inside the combat manager is that resolution of spells and resolution of melee will be two different things. So we'll need to send it to two different resolutions. The attack animation, we'll use this common code right here. Case combat manager dot attack spell. Case combat manager dot attack weapon. Oops. In that, and here I need to have the animator. I don't think I saved off a reference to the animator above here, so we're going to need to get that. And I'll put it up here, private animator, and we can get that animator. Let me think, where's the best place to get that? Actually, we're not going to be able to know it because neither the mob nor the NPC. Well, we do have the game object. We can look it up that way. Well, we only get the game. Let's see, where does that game object get set? Let's see. Probably not in the constructor. This was going to be too. We're not going to have the game object yet, and it's going to be set later on. We're going to need to actually have a function to do this, to set the animator, because we have to make sure that this guy is all the way created before we start using this stuff. So public void set animator. This anim equals anim. Okay, that should be enough to do that. Now, okay, where to do that? There's another place where we're using the animator, and that's over here in the character controller, all the way up here at the top. I believe it's being used around here. Let's see, where is... No, it isn't. Okay. Well, we'll have it at this point. So animator anim equals get component animator npc dot set animator anim. There, that sets the animator. Right back over to mob. Mob is going to need to perform the attack animation. Now we have a reference to the animator. But what about the player? The player hasn't set their animator. The NPCs do. The player needs to set its animator as well. Well, let's see. I think I decided to do that over here in the first-person controller. Since the other controller set it, we'll set it here. And so I'm doing it up in update. I don't think I can do it in start. Well, I guess do I know if it's... I need to know that the player has finished initializing, and I don't know that that can be done here in the start. So as ugly as this is, we can fix it later. I can fix it later. I need. Do I need to keep a track of the player? I'm going to need to get a hold of the reference to the player object, and I'm going to need that reference later when it comes time to run the player attack animations. First-person controller is the analog to enemy character controller, so it does the same thing. Decide when we're in range to run the animations. It's just that this time we'll let the player initiate the attacks, but we will not perform them unless we're in range. So in each case, we're going to need to have a reference to the player object. So private player equals null, and then I'm going to fix this right in here. If the player is null, and again, that's to make sure that initialization is finished. I don't know, I can't plan the order of initialization of game objects. All right, so if it is, first thing I want to do is get the targetable, because that's where the data is kept. And I can get that off my transform, get component, targetable, and check to make sure that the targetable exists. And that the targetable type is the player. And you see as I'm expressing it backwards here, a little application of De Morgan's law. Okay, that takes care of that. I want to debug.log. Color equals red. Player, oops. Player has no available component. Let's say it doesn't have one. If later I say yes, he does, it's just not set right, that's something else. Not much else I can do right here. That'll mean there'll be some. Let's see. And I know that the target data is. Okay, I'll just say else. I know that we have data, that we're a player. So player equals the targetable data as player. Okay, so that gives us a player there. I'm caching that, and at the same time I can get the animator. Animator anim equals, looking up off the game object, get component animator. It's important the animator be at the top level, and player dot set animator anim. Okay, so now both player and NPCs have their animator controller set, and so the mob class as a whole has a valid animator. So when I come back over here and I say perform the attack animations, we can perform them using the anim member. Which animation should we perform? Go back over to here, make sure I'm running the Nightshade animation controller, base layer. First of all, melee. This attack downwards I think was a good one to use. And I'm going to preview it. Okay, that'll look good for the pick. Okay, notice I've renamed all of these something reasonable. So this will be my intent is to have a common naming for these animations. And I'll just call for them no matter what the mob is. Everybody should have some of these common animations. You'll see how well that works. The player, first of all, does the orc have that? Yeah, it has the, okay, actually it's showing me bash. Still showing me bash. Oh, because it's using the bash motion. All right, we'll fix orc later. Enough for, let's get Nightshade. And spellcasting, it has a few of these as well. I think Two-Headed Magic 01. Yeah, that's a good one. Those are the two animations that I'm going to use. And everybody should have those is my goal. So let me bring up the code and go back to here. And for the spell, whoops. I want to do, and instead of saying and play, that would be the easiest thing to do. I'm going to run a crossfade. I want to blend the animations together to make sure it doesn't look as bad as it would otherwise. Okay, So it's a pretty quick transition, but it is a smooth transition, and that can be adjusted. And downward. Now, does this work with Mechanism? Yep, it does. What will happen is that we will transition immediately to this animation, and then once we're back here, you notice that all of them have transitions. We click one of them, a transition back to the base layer, unconditional, and we go back to the base layer, and we see that spellcasting has a transition right here, no, right here, back to grounded, unconditional. And so it just drops us right back into this little part of the state machine. And we'll go back to whatever we were doing before. Now, right now there are no cooldowns, so I'm probably going to need to do that, but let me try running those animations to see if anything visible happens. It's, oops, probably not a good idea to run them every frame. What is going on here? I'm having a problem with my character controller. Let's see if okay, let me pause this and find out what's going on. Here's a clue. All right, something I broke down in the controller, line 83. So the player doesn't have data that's targetable. Go back up to the top here. Object reference not to an object, that's not good. No sphere colliders. Alright, let's take a look at the player. He has a targetable type player. Now, does he get that constructed? Let's see. One of my questions might be, where does this constructor get called? Or better yet, where's instance get called? Okay. The target manager and the command interpreter and player, target manager. Okay. The target manager does, and this is per zone, will instantiate the player. So when player comes in here, but he hasn't set his data. He needs to create that. I don't see any place where the targetable data is set. Okay, and the easy thing to do is it's right in here, right after we instantiate it. The player is targetable data. So I'll say something like, well, I'm going to need to get the targetable data down here under instance there. All right, so targetable equals instance dot player dot get component. Okay, so the instance is this thing that we're building right now, or this thing we just created rather. The player is the static up here. I'm sorry, no, it's this game object. Now, does that get set? I'm going to need to make sure that that does get set properly. So let's see, where is player? Get too far down here. Player equals game object dot I'm going to do something, find object tag. I hate using tags for this type of stuff, but you know, how often are we doing this? Once per zone. Let me double check the player. It has the tag player. Yes, it does. Okay, verify that it has that tag. Okay, so now we have loaded the tag. I should check it here. Okay, debug.log, color equals red. find an object with tag player. Okay. All right, so we're down here. We assume that player has been created. Well, if it isn't, we're going to error down there. It's not going to be the end of the world. If targetable is null, and color equals red, player does not have a target. And otherwise, we know that we have targetable now. I can say targetable.data equals instance, and that will set the targetable data. So these error messages are key to everything working correctly. Let's stop it right now and look for some. There is a null reference here in the character controller, for NPC. No targetable data for the NPC. Where does that get set? Now this is the start of the enemy character. That's a mono behavior, isn't it? Yep, that is. So it's possible that we're getting things done out of order. Okay. Well, first thing I'm going to do here is go back over to the spawn group, because that's where this is set. And I'm going to put a log assign data for npc.name, bar npc.id, okay, let's just make sure that we see it trying to assign it. Okay. So the enemy character controller is there. Where's the assigned data? Way down here. Oh, I know where this is. Like, why is this happening? Well, we haven't even created any NPCs. That's because I have this knucklehead in the scene. So it's very important that we watch those static NPCs. There we go. No problems so far. I'm going to run over here. We're going to see probably unimpressive when it does its animation. Likely every frame for all I know. The combat manager, the enemy character control. Let's see. Down here under where the attack is occurring. Oh, okay. No calls to the combat manager. That's a good thing to fix. Well, I'm pretty close to being done, but I'm going to stop this video, start another one here, give everyone a break while and then when we come back, what I'm going to do is to make the call to the combat manager to process the attacks, which will start the animations. But we're going to have to talk about cooldowns for the NPC, because if I don't do this, every frame it's going to be starting that animation over again, and we'll never see anything other than having a seizure. So I will be back in the next video. We'll fix that.